So today we are starting the first edition. It's an improvised version, but I think it's definitely important to start this. You might be wondering why you are holding a book, and I don't know why I don't have my book on my table yet, but any of them. Thank you. Yes. So today we would want to discuss something from Make IT. And I think that I have a great panel with me. I have to say, you don't see Karim's picture there because he has to be traveling a bit earlier. And I think that it's definitely important that we also have him on stage to talk about things that are actually related to this. So basically what I have is the Scale Up Entrepreneur's Guide to Investment. Of course, there are some with Kenya, some with Nigeria. But I think that there are key things that are almost the same. And the whole idea is not to make it super serious, but also to make it a bit more informal and relaxing, because it seems that we're getting all the tough information, but let's be a bit calmer on this. So basically, we have Anton, who started with this whole research, and I would love to hear a little bit about what exactly triggered this, and how did you come up with such a great book?
Sure. All right. So I think you probably have to ask GIZ about how they came up with this idea. But I think what they would probably say is, I think a lot of people still need to understand, what financing is and how do they approach investors, and who to approach, and how to tailor the pitch to different types of investors, etc. So I think the idea for the investor guide came about as a way to answer two key questions. The first one is, basically, how do you approach investors? How do you create a pitch deck? What financials do the investors want to see? So that's question one. And question two is, once you do have that understanding, who do you actually go and reach out to? So as part of the effort, I try to speak with as many investors, as many entrepreneurs, as many advisors, accelerators, etc., to try to get a better understanding of what do investors want to see, what do successful startups, what tips do they have for sort of the younger generation, and distill that all into one easily digestible guide, and that's what you guys have hopefully in your hands.
Okay, Anton, but who are you?
So my name is Anton Root. I am the head of research at Allied Crowds. We are sort of a data tech advisory firm. We focus on alternative finance and emerging markets. So we came up with this database of investors, and that's sort of how we came to GIZ and sort of pitched this idea.
Okay. Next is money. Actually, I'm looking at this book, and it talks about different stages of startup for typical funding needs. And I just want to know, who are you, and what do you do, and how do you support different stages of startups?
Hi, okay, that's better. I am Mani Aqua. I'm the founder of About, which is actually an acronym for A Better Africa with Tech. I'm from Ghana. I can see a few Ghanaians in the room, actually. And I've actually lived in Berlin for the past 3 years. About was founded on the principle of three main things. One was community. I was looking for a meetup to actually just share and talk about African startups, and I didn't find one. So I decided to set one up myself, and that was about 2 years ago. And in Berlin, we meet at least once every 2 months. And this showcases African startups and gives an open platform where everyone can actually discuss problems and possible solutions, and even give startups idea validation from the crowd, so they can look to what the future of their potential is. So that was the foundation of About, the community. The second is actually startup guidance. So from this meetup, I noticed there were quite a few people there who would love to give free time to mentor startups in Africa, on the continent. So we put together a pool of people from the meetup who would love, depending on whatever medium you want, email, Skype, and however often you want, to give some free time to some startups there and share your resources with them. The third is a tech pool. So we are building 2 bases, one in Accra, Ghana, and second in Lagos, Nigeria, where developers can actually have the opportunity to work for companies that have an African focus, but not just for salary, but for equity and stock as well. So it provides them with a good balance of obviously a good lifestyle, but a future obviously as an investment, not just cash. So that's basically who I am and what I do.
Awesome. Okay, so basically we have a book talking about investment, and from what I gather from you, there are people, so for instance, someone is in ideation stage, someone going into the building stage, someone doing the prototype, and so you have developers that actually support these startups, and then they get in return some kind of equity, which probably, I would say, Anton, you've stated different types of investment. So for a developer who is here or someone who is skilled here, how is this person able to form under what category as an investor when they are giving their skills and capacity to such startups?
You mean in terms of compensation?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think for early stage startups, and I think that's the case everywhere in the world, a lot of employees will take on equity as sort of part of the compensation package. And depending on the cash flows of the startups, their backing, et cetera, that sort of the equity component of their compensation will vary from, fairly small to a pretty large chunk, especially if they're an early employee at the company. So yeah, I mean, I think we see that all over the world. I've definitely seen that in Kenya, Nigeria, in Ghana as well. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a great way for sort of cash-strapped companies to attract really high-quality individuals to join their team. So I think absolutely. I mean, it's something that it's quite common, and I think every employee should be considering that, and also should probably fight for some equity in the company that they're joining.
Okay, great. I know you did interview a lot of ecosystem players, the accelerators, and I have Karim here, the founder of Yoko Labs, and he's also connected to funding and everything. Karim, can you explain a little bit who you are and what you do?
Thank you. First, I'm an entrepreneur, actually, but
Yes.
I turned into a social entrepreneur almost 8 years ago when I found Jocolab, which is a private non-profit initiative, meaning that we were unfunded, and the idea was to support entrepreneurship and innovation. I mean, in that transitional world, how we can take advantage of it and find new ways of doing things. So Jocolab is based on a network of innovation hub. We used to have one of the first in Africa, in Dakar, Senegal, and now we have 12 hubs in covering 9 countries, including France. And in France, we are not talking about Africa. We are doing the same stuff we are doing in Africa, but in France, around La Défense, which is a business area in a suburb of Paris. So what we do, we give resources, we give programs, we actually do a lot of things, and we are coming into funding. And beside of that, 1 year ago, I have the honor to be appointed by the President Macron as a member of the Presidential Council for Africa. So, as he wants to understand what's happened in the also with the entrepreneurs and be connected to the youth in Africa, we came with that project. Actually, is starting, which is Digital Africa, as we are talking about startups. It has been announced at Vivatech in Paris a few months ago that we'll get actually the missing link of that for pre-seed and seed capital. 69 million euro fund for startups in Africa. And also that initiative will be innovative because it's actually everybody can be linked to it, because we'll build a platform, online platform, and it's built in the spirit of the common good. So it will be for everybody. You can come and share as soon as you're aligned to the value. Value are the protection of data, which is very important. Openness, inclusiveness, all the approach we have in France and in Europe. So that's a new approach, and so we can share the capacity of the tools for doing it. There will be functionality for like running a challenge, functionality to matchmaking of people, functionality to run a community, all the things you can imagine. I think that books is very important actually, because entrepreneurs don't know how to go for the funding.
Yes.
Actually, they don't know what the road is to go for the funding. Meaning, what is a pre-seed, what is seed, what is Series A, B, C, what is the difference between a VC, between a business angel, or I'm also business angel actually, and so it's very difficult because they talk to everybody the same way, and actually they are not prepared for it, and they watch the TV and they feel that their valuation is how many million, and so they are losing the thing. So it's very good to have those kind of resources, so they can first understand how it works, and then be prepared for that, and prepare themselves, because we have now in October will be 8 years operation, and we have done a lot of contact with some VC to company. Actually, we are not doing it any longer. Why? Because it was killing the company, because they were not prepared for it. So even it crashed the team, because they go on dispute because one wants to do it like that, because they didn't think about it. How they want to develop the company, how they want to fund it, and the thing. And so you have to be very careful on this. So I think it's very valuable to get those.
Great. Okay, I can see my timer is telling me I have only 5 minutes. So I'll just try to make it quick by asking you, what was the awkward situation where you found yourself, whereby someone wants to actually get funded but asked you the wrong question? And how did you respond to them? And how did you bring them back on track? Anyone?
Well, my company, we don't actually fund directly, but at least from what I've heard, I think investors, a lot of the investors that I've talked to, they said, a lot of people just aren't really experienced enough, don't really understand the sector well enough to really convince the investors that giving this entrepreneur money will eventually pan out in the long term. I think they've had a lot of those awkward conversations, and at least some of the advice that they've given me, which I put into this book, is basically be able to show that you've been trying to solve a problem, whichever problem it is, for a long time. So they want to see you potentially, studying about this at school or university. They want to see you sort of trying to solve this problem maybe as an employee at a company where you were working. And then now that you're an entrepreneur trying to raise money and asking them for money, they want to make sure that, this is something you've thought about for a long time, and they're not, this isn't just a whim of yours. It's something that you've really committed essentially your whole life to. So those are the type of committed entrepreneurs that investors are looking for.
Okay. Karim, when you were appointed as the advisor, or appointed to be part of the council to advise the president. Did any of your relatives call you to say, hey, it's about time you give me some money?
It was more when he announced he will give 1 billion to the entrepreneur in Africa. Then I have a lot of friends now, and specifically when you do it for the startup scene at Digital with Vivatech on Digital Africa. But I mean, all the funding of the VC or thing, they get the same problem. I mean, it's not, the money is not in my pocket. I mean, even the people from GIZ or the Development Bank, even you, I'm sure. Well.
Okay, Money. Anything you want to add? Has any startup come with you with a pitch deck and said their company is worth about $1 billion?
No, not $1 billion, but I mean, I feel like there is a kind of different approach to how people view questions from startups, right? I feel if someone asks a stupid question, it might be because they have no background or no guidance as to how to approach the situation. So I feel like in any situation, I've been through a few mentorship programs as well, even outside of About, I've been to some of the impact ones as well. And we found out that most people, when they ask the wrong questions, it's because they actually have no clue what the right questions are. And we find out that during startup guidance, and it just takes 10 minutes to change someone's mindset from what are the right questions, so am I doing the right thing, to, oh, I need to do these 5 different things, and everything just changes. 10 minutes, if you give that time to someone who has no clue, they'd be grateful forever. It changes their life. So I feel there's no stupid question, first of all. But then I also feel, which is just like an addition, an add-on, that there is a problem with networking in general, I feel, in the African startup industry. So most people have communities. Like I say, we have the About community, and they have so many different communities, but there's a problem with them not being merged. It's kind of like everyone has an ownership of their community. It's like, this is my people, but that is old school. Like, this has to change. There has to be inter-networking and some sort of common background or some sort of platform where we can all actually talk without feeling a sense of ownership or sense of pride as to how many people we actually have, right? And this has to change. For me, that is a big problem with the community thing. So,
I think, Karim, go ahead.
No, I think it's a very great introduction for what we want to achieve with Digital Africa. Mm-hmm. We came to the same conclusion, and that's why I say the approach is a common good. I mean, perhaps people are not familiar with that, but it's like water. We say we build that or layer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, so the platform we're building is for everybody, and you can use it, and it's free, mm-hmm. and that's the idea. So we join our forces to make impact. Actually, I think we reached that level, and we need to do it. I mean, we have a global responsibility for that.
Also,
it's one word.
Yeah. So on this note, I have to say yes. There are no.
Just one thing about the question.
Uh-huh.
In the meantime, it's always good to ask questions. There's no bad or false question. I mean, the guy said the wrong, as he said. I mean, it's because he don't know.
Right.
It's good. So then he knows because he will get the answer. So it's also for the people in front to not being upset. Just understand that there is a more maturity to get for the market, and then to be part of it. Exactly. So to explain that, okay, there's this, and you are at that level, and then perhaps you will reach that, or I recommend. You take Steve Jobs when he went to the first VC for Apple. The guy say, "I'm not interested," but he said, "Perhaps I have someone who is interested." So he said, "For me, it makes no sense," but so we need to do that also.
Right, definitely. So I would say one thing, and I think it's very important. We need to be very open. Yes, there might be questions that you feel uncomfortable, but just ask them. But before you do, there is a guide. Today is a very good day for opportunities to meet investors and potential partners. Just quickly read your guide. if you want, just look at the glossary and then see all the keywords that you need to have. And please, reach out to the investors in the room, reach out to the partners, and make it happen. On this day, yeah.
And see the background of the people who are in front of you. Actually, if they are VC and you're talking about seeds, you don't interest them. So you need to know a minimum. It's like you come for a job. You apply to a job, you come to a company, and you don't know the company. I mean, you need to do your job before you come. You know?
Exactly.
So do the job and see who you have in front of you.
Yeah, and
and read the book.
yeah, and I just want to say the sort of the next version of the book is, and with the help of the GIZ team, Stephanie, Jan here, as well as Mutembe and Chimili in Kenya and Nigeria, we're putting the book online as a sort of interactive, sort of easy to understand, fun version. So you're not going to have to read the whole book. For example, if you're looking for $25,000, you're not going to need to know about private equity firms or VCs. So we're going to just tell you information that you probably need at that stage. So instead of having to read this sort of long, potentially unruly book, all you need to do is read, hopefully fewer slides about or a little bit less information, but that's much more relevant to your specific situation.
Okay, and on this note, I would say a very big thank you. We tried, and I think Afro Media would come to life soon. So please feel free, network, read, and eat. Cheers.